from heaven may arrive anytime.
I had a dream of my girlfriend's mother, and she knocked on my door.
Life doesn't end.
And I thought, what is this? And if I blink my eyes, maybe it'll disappear. And I kept blinking my eyes, but he stayed for about 15 seconds.
I only knew that this was a message that he wanted me to get to his wife.
They are still there.
And I said, I know you would know what to do.
Life doesn't
And I said to him, Barry, when you see my dad, send me a sign, flick the lights, that everything is okay.
And sometimes they are very tangible, dramatic kinds of signs that there's no doubt in your mind that
they are still there.
My sister-in-law said to me, Josie, don't you realize that you've been given a gift?
There's only love.
My father coming to me to tell me that the ring was in the chair was truly a visit from heaven.
My wife's amazing. She, ever since I started dating her, I knew that she had some kind of drive beyond what I had or anybody even I ever met have. Turns out I found she had this disability, CP, but I never even really knew that, to tell you the truth. And I never even thought of it as a disability.
Okay, welcome everybody. This is Artie Hoffman with Angels and Answers, and this week I have a special guest, Josie Varga, and she's the author from Visits from Heaven. So if anybody wishes to call in and to have a conversation with Josie.
If you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be writing a book about afterlife communication, the truth is I would have told you were crazy. But as they say, everything happens for a reason, and I truly believe in that. In August of 2003, I had a very vivid, lucid dream about my husband's friend and former boss who died in the World Trade Center attacks of September 11th. Let me explain something. I never met Rich when he was on this earth, but yet in the dream, I knew it was him. So I'm walking down this long hallway and I come to this room on the end, and I go into the room, I look around, and there are desks and windows everywhere. And all of a sudden, I look up and I see Rich. And Rich said to me, Josie, thank you for mentioning me in your book. He was referring to my book, Footprints in the Sand, which is about my story and how I overcame my disability.
So when Josie was finishing up her first book, Footprints in the Sand, she was wondering about a way to close it. And I said to her, hey, I got an idea. I think this letter from Rich might fit. It was such a moving letter. It lifted your spirits. It was sad, but uplifting at the same time. It's hard to explain, that I always kept it.
I said, Rich, you have to prove to me that this is really you. And his response to that was to pick up a phone on the desk. It was like a flip phone. He opened the phone, and there was a picture of him, his wife, and his son. And he said, Boston is okay. I didn't know at the time what Boston is okay meant. I only knew that this was a message that he wanted me to get to his wife.
Visits from heaven may arrive anytime.
I had come home from work, and Dad had been on my mind all day. And I laid on the couch and had a little cry about him. And I was talking to him, and I said, Dad,
I wish you were here. I know you would know what to do. I miss you.
There was a little family problem going on, and I said, I know you would know what to do. And when I opened my eyes, there was the letter E up over the picture behind me, and with the period after it, which is kind of significant because when my dad would sign greeting cards to the family, he would sign, love, your dad, E.F.L, which were his initials. His name was Edward Francis Landmesser.
If someone is looking for a sign, I have found that prayer really does touch God's heart. He really has a special place in his heart for those who are grieving. And if you go to God and say a prayer like, please replace my heart's sorrow with your joy, Please allow my loved one to come visit me in a comforting way. You'll be pleasantly surprised that God will be touched by your prayer, and if you keep your eyes open, I think you'll be blessed.
The E was on the wall probably about 10 minutes. When I first saw it, the first thing I thought of is no one's going to believe this is happening. So, of course, I went to look for my phone and to take a picture with the cell phone and captured it as many times as I could and thought, okay, now I have it, at least it's here.
Now, this case with Linda reminds me of another famous case of writing on the wall. I guess 5,000 years ago, when ancient Babylon was in decay, the king was holding court, and everyone was drunk and reveling over their riches, when suddenly this hand materialized and wrote a message on the wall, warning everyone about the dangers of materialism. I guess that was written in the book of Daniel in the Bible. I think a similar thing happened to Linda, a writing on the wall incident, except it wasn't a dire warning, but just a simple message of love from her dad. The letter E for Edward. I guess in this case, the letter E was a real love letter.
So it lasted about 5 or 10 minutes, and then I guess with the movement of the sun, wherever the reflection was coming from, it dissipated, and then it kind of just blended into one big light. But since that day, I've tried to recreate. I almost put ropes around the tables and the room to say, no one touch anything in this room. I want to see and be here exactly the next time, the next day, watch when the sun goes down to see if the reflection happens again, and it didn't.
In Linda's case, with the E that appeared on her wall, this is an excellent example of the kind of meaningful sign that can appear to the living when the dead are trying to communicate a message. If nothing else, then to communicate, hey, I'm here. This is something that you would recognize uniquely associated to me.
Visits from heaven may arrive anytime.
I had a dream of my girlfriend's mother, and she knocked on my door. I opened the door and she said, "Can you give this to Kathy and tell her that I'm okay?" The next morning when I got up, I spoke with my husband, and my husband said, that's just crazy. Don't say anything to her. A few months had passed by, and I saw my friend Kathy, and something told me, tell her the story. Then I said, "Kathy, I'm going to tell you something. You might think I'm crazy, but I'm going to tell you anyway." I said, "Can you tell me what your mom's favorite flowers are?" And she said, "White tulips." I said, "Well, I have a message from her. I had a dream about her, and she wanted me to give you white tulips and to tell you that she's okay." Kathy stood there for a moment, and she said, "Oh my God, I have chills. I can't believe you just told me that."
A loving reminder that they are still there.
Everybody has their different little messages, how they want to send to their loved ones. It could come in literally hundreds of different ways. It could come through their favorite flower. It could come through a bird. It could come through any means. That's their hello to you. It's just constant messages.
I think I was chosen by her mother because she knew her daughter was going to get that message, where if it was somebody else, they would have forgotten about it the next day and said, okay, it was just a dream.
So I'm walking down this long hallway, and I come to this room on the end, and I go into the room, I look around, and there are desks and windows everywhere. I look up and I see Rich, and he said, Boston is okay. I didn't know at the time what Boston is okay meant. I only knew that this was a message that he wanted me to get to his wife. The next thing I remember is going through a window, and I found myself out on the street. And I see Rich in the bed of a pickup truck behind his wife and his son. And he says, okay, give her the message, and pushes me forward. And when he did that, I woke up in a sitting position, panting and out of breath. I felt like something hit me in my chest.
I just got to work. It was around 7:30, I would say. And I was just settling in and turn on my computer, and then the phone rings. Pick it up, it's Josie, and she says, "This is so weird. I had a crazy dream. It was like more than a dream." And she explained me the situation of Rich, and I said, "Well, I've had crazy dreams too. It's just a dream." So I said, "Don't worry about it." And I hung up. And then in a little while, she called me back again. She goes, "I can't let this go. This is more than just a dream. You have to do something. What would you like me to do?"
Honey, you have to tell Rich's wife what happened. You have to tell her Boston is okay.
I'm not doing that. It'll totally freak her out. And I just refuse to do that.
Hi, Lynn. My wife had this interesting dream about Rich. If you think it's appropriate, can you forward it to Karen?
As soon as I hit send, I regret it. I'm like, what did I do that for?
I was okay with it. I was happy because I knew that I did what Rich wanted me to do.
So 2 weeks later, I get this message on my BlackBerry, and it's from Rich's sister-in-law. And I'm almost fearing reading this email, expecting the worst, expecting her to say something like, "How dare you intrude? This is a very personal matter."
Hi, John. Thanks for sending the dream. Because my sister has actually been considering moving to Boston.
You know, looked at each other and went,
We don't know enough about the mechanisms of dreaming, except that certain kinds of dreams that have a high psychic component to them, like a visitation dream, are like electricity, and they follow the path of least resistance. If there are factors that make it difficult or even impossible for the departed to communicate with the target person, they will go to the next best channel who has the best chance of getting the message to them. And of course, that requires that that person then speak up. And as Josie experienced, she had reluctance at first because this isn't an easy topic to broach with someone who's grieving.
Sometimes when a person dies and quickly gets settled in on the other side, he wants to connect with the widow he loves so much, you know. Usually he'll try to come through in a dream, but it can be a problem if the wife is lost in grief. So the spirit might communicate with a more neutral third party, maybe a friend or acquaintance of the couple, and show up in her dream instead, in hopes that that message will be conveyed to the grieving widow.
Visits from heaven may arrive anytime.
So about 6 months after I saw the E on the wall, I was looking at my computer and missing Dad, having another one of those days, and thought I would like to go in and look at his house. So I looked on the computer and I looked into Google Earth, and I plugged in his address. So I thought, well, let me at least look at the house on the computer. And in some place in my mind, I thought perhaps when they were taking the pictures from the sky, maybe they caught Dad getting out of his car in the driveway or in the window. I could see him. So I pulled up his address on Google Earth and it went down to hit the street level so I can get close to the house. And as his house was coming into view from the Google Earth camera, it zoomed down in, and at the same time, a picture of my dad zoomed across the screen and landed right on his address. At the time, Margie had been kind of on the other couch looking over my shoulder, and I was like, oh, did you see that? And she had seen it happening, and she says, what the heck was that? I said, I don't know. Dad's picture just appeared over his address. So it was a picture of him after he had had his stroke before he died. And we were lucky because Dad was almost 85, and he really was only sick the last 2 months of his life. So the picture was from when he was in the hospital. It was actually him in the hospital bed. But it was one of the few shots we had of him where he actually made eye contact with me. And that's the picture that kind of zoomed across the screen and landed on his address.
My name is Stephen Hodis. I am a board-certified gastroenterologist. I've been in practice for over 30 years. My interest in spirituality and religion and trying to make sense of the universe was a side diversion. It was just another path for me. But it soon became part of who I am personally and as a physician. Brian Weiss was one of the authors that early on in my journey I picked up his book. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, another MD. And when I look back at who influenced me early on, it turned out to be, in many cases, MDs and PhDs. And it's not that I'm a snob. It's not because I think they're any smarter than anyone else, but these are people that have science backgrounds. These are not coming from the world of religion or spirituality. I came up with this concept that I call the credibility quotient. It seems to me is that the closer we are to an experience, the more credible it is. If you had an experience, a near-death experience, after-death communication, or you had your own reading with a medium, you walk away from that experience saying, this was real. I don't care if anyone believes me, I know this was real. If you tell a friend of yours, someone who knows you and trusts you, a lot of that credibility is transferred to that second person because they know you. They know there's nothing behind this except a pure experience. However, if that person tells a third person who doesn't know you, oh, my friend had this experience, all of a sudden it's losing its credibility. It just seems to me a natural phenomenon that it's not going to be as believable.
There is no question in your mind whether this is true or not. You just know that it is true because there's no denying it in your heart and you can't intellectualize it away. This happens and you feel it. You can feel the presence of this person in your heart and there's no doubt.
For me, this spiritual journey, the metaphysical journey, has led me to believe in a spiritual reality based on evidence. And I think, to me, it makes it more powerful because I'm not doing it because I was brainwashed in some way. And I'm not doing it just because it makes me feel good to believe that there is a spiritual reality. I honestly believe the evidence is overwhelming that it really does exist.
So the flip-top phones were pretty rare at the time. They cost a lot of money. They were something only a gadget person would want because they're like $500, the Motorola flip phone. So Rich had this. It was not surprising to me at all that Rich would resort to this cell phone, flip phone with pictures to show Josie that, hey, this is me. This is how I'm going to show you the picture of my wife and kids.
It really did identify Rich positively because he was the kind of person who had to have the latest gadget. Look at the universal significance of that as well. It's an instrument of communication. And so it's a sign that communication is being established from the afterlife to the realm of the living.
When it first happened, it's not something that I went around and shouted. I was very quiet about my experience. I was afraid to share my experience because I thought people were going to think that I was crazy. And one day, I was sitting and talking to my sister-in-law, Sherry. And my sister-in-law said to me, Josie, don't you realize that you've been given a gift? And what she said hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, I realized, oh my God, you know what? She's right. I have been given a gift. And I realized then that I needed to do something about it. I wanted to help the bereaved. I wanted to go to the tallest mountain and shout, life never ends, love never dies. But obviously I couldn't do that. So I decided to do the next best thing, and I wrote my book, Visits from Heaven.
There's only love.
What was going through my mind was that I was saying to myself, how could I doubt that he's here? Because there's such clear signs that are happening.
Welcome to Jersey City. This is the place where it's happening.
On the next episode of Visits from Heaven.
I have my Mary statue out here. She watches over me and watches over everybody that stops by to say hello. I'm going across the street to the Rosary House, where we hold rosaries every Friday evening.
Hi, my name is Ralph Cadalzo, and I'm the caretaker of the Rosary House here in Jersey City. And it's a beautiful thing because I get to live and pray in the same location.
Hi, I'm Deanie Saltarelli, and this is my daughter Sammy, and she had a miracle on December 12th, 1999. I met this man, Ray, from Jersey City, and he asked me to pray the rosary for the rest of my life, and he promised me she would walk. She was partially paralyzed. He said, let me hold your daughter. I said, no, she doesn't go to anybody. She only stays with her mom. Meanwhile, then she jumped right into his arms, and he held her for the rest of the night. I was probably there for about 4 hours, and there were people coming and going and praying the rosary all night. He had this stigmata that night. I did not know what that was. My friend was saying, look at his hands, look at his hands. And I said, what is it? Why is he bleeding? And she said, that's the stigmata of Jesus. And I said, wow.
Save me, save me, save me, save me, yeah. Won't you please save me?
I had pneumonia for a month and a half. I actually thought it was allergies. I didn't realize. And I went to sleep one night and I didn't wake up. And then I ended up in the hospital. I had 3 strokes, rhabdomyolysis, where that's the breakdown of the muscle tissues. I had kidney failure, I was on dialysis, and they actually told my mother that I was brain dead to pull the plug on me. And then the 3rd day I was in the coma, my mother had spoken to my friend Ralphie, and he said he knows of this guy Ray. Maybe we should speak to him. So my mother said, definitely.
He asked us to put the phone by Chris's ear. Chris was totally in a coma. I explained to Ray he can't hear. He said, it's okay. Just put the phone on speaker, put it by your son's ear.
The next day I woke up. I was barely able to talk, and my father said, you know, we had this guy speak to you. I says, I know, the guy Ray. And I remember the whole conversation. He was speaking to me in a very soft voice, telling me to stay away from the light.
Save me, 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 yes. Jesus, please save me.
This is the home of hope and the home of faith. So, welcome.
There's only
You can never give up. The doctors, they know a lot, but they don't know everything. They were shocked themselves. Most of them never came back in to see Chris again.